Battle of Trafalgar, one of the most brutal naval battles in history. On display, a varied arsenal of weaponry, from boarding cutlasses to flintlock pistols and explosives.
We wanted to find out more about the weapons used at the battle, so aboard this tall ship in Penzance, we spoke to weapons expert Keith Wallis. In the early 19th century, a Royal Navy sailor's most trusted weapon was his cutlass. These would be used to engage in fierce hand-to-hand combat with enemy crews. Various kinds of cutlass would have been on display at Trafalgar.
So Keith, we've got here a few different naval swords. Can you talk us through these? What period is this one? This looks like a pirate cutlass, this one.
Absolutely, yeah. So I think when you say cutlass, I think this is the kind of thing that most people tend to think of. We've got this curved blade. This is a Dutch in East India sword, and it's from the sort of golden age of piracy, if you like, through the 18th century, and it's got this shell guard, and you can see there's obviously a real curvature to the blade. Obviously very good for cutting, but also good for stabbing as well. Yeah. This is what people will often think of, but it's of a type that on land we would refer to this as a short sabre or a hanger. But you'd still see the odd sword like this hanging around, sort of knocking around in terms of officers carrying them. We've got another type of officer's sword here as well.
So this one's moving forward a century or so?
Well, this is moving forward certainly a few decades, yeah, in terms of this is more it resembles more of a short sabre, effectively. And this is more of an officer class sword. You can see the elaborate hilt and the pommel here. A lot of decoration there, yeah. And these tend to be a little bit more customized, almost personalized. Sometimes they're engraved, that kind of thing. Again, there's quite a curvature to the blades. It's much more like a short saber, really.
Expensive, these?
They can really vary, but yeah, these can get really expensive. Whereas your standard seaman is going to be carrying something like your 1804 Navy Cutlass, which you'll notice is a straight blade.
Yeah.
It's fairly weighty. It's about a kilogram, but the weight is towards the hand. So if you grab hold of that, although it's weighty, it doesn't feel too bad because the weight isn't all in the blade. So it's great for both cutting and for thrusting with. It's a single-edged weapon. Rarely are they sharp on this false edge, this closest side. And then you've got this figure of 8 pattern on the guard. And this is also handy as a weapon itself. When you get into close quarters, it's pretty robust for fighting with as well. But this is your kind of standard issue cutlass that people are most likely to be using.
And in a boarding party, did sailors prefer swords or did they prefer other weapons?
I think this is the most useful thing, and you can manipulate it quite quickly, but it does have the opportunity to either you can cut or you can thrust with it. It's not too long, so it's an ideal weapon for working on deck. But equally, when you do get in close, it's useful for kind of punching with sort of knuckle duster style, and it's easy to manipulate, whereas something like, say, a boarding axe, you're really committed because it's sort of, you're putting so much into it, you can't really get back as quickly as you can with something like this. So this is the kind of, this is the weapon I would choose certainly for if I was boarding, and this is the standard issue as well.
No, it looks pretty effective.
Now, from the conventional to the slightly more unconventional. When the French 74-gun ship of the line Redoutable engaged HMS Victory at Trafalgar, Captain Jean-Jacques Lucas's men were able to clear Victory's decks with a small but extremely effective and explosive weapon.
So when you think about weapons at the Battle of Trafalgar, you probably think of pistols and muskets and cutlasses, but you don't necessarily think of these things. These were grenades used mainly by the French. Now, Keith, what were these things made of?
So essentially it's a ball of iron that's then filled with gunpowder, and then you've got this quick match effectively, so you can light it and then you can throw it like you would a grenade, and they're referred to as grenades or sometimes grenados. And we know that these were being used through the sort of golden age of piracy. These were being used, they come out of the Byzantine Empire, and we know that they were being used at the Battle of Trafalgar as well.
And how exactly were they being used? Were they being used to just clear decks or thrown below, or in a defensive or a mainly offensive manner?
So alongside the fact that you've got musket fire and volleys going on as well to cause extra damage, you're also throwing these to kind of damage and disarray and hit large numbers of people, so you can clear those decks effectively.
And how effective were these? Were they used a lot at the Battle of Trafalgar or only on occasion?
So we know that the Redoutable was using them. They record having used them against Victory and throwing them to try and clear the decks of their boarding parties. And it seems like it was pretty devastating.
Well, I'll tell you what, the last thing I'd want to see below deck is one of those things dropping down. Devastating.
In the age of fighting sail, all ships' crews could call upon a patchwork of deadly weapons for boarding enemy ships. And by the second half of the 18th century, one type of firearm was becoming particularly popular for close quarters fighting.
So Keith, this is one of the weapons we'd be using if we were about to board an enemy ship.
Absolutely.
What can you tell us about this pistol?
So this is the Sea Service pistol, and it comes in from around the mid-18th century through to the time of Trafalgar and well into the 19th century. It's a flintlock pistol, and this is one of the longer versions. It's the 12-inch barrel. You've then got, from the 1790s, they shortened the barrel a little bit, the East India Company, because they're finding in a tight press of people, you want that slightly shorter weapon.
So you'd be really close in with people when you're on their ship.
The thing is, it's not the most accurate of weapons, so it's at closer ranges it's going to have more chance of hitting its target, essentially. The thing about it, because it's a flintlock pistol, there's always the potential for sort of moisture getting to the powder and things like that, so the chance of misfire. So the question is at what point they were loading these before they board. I'm assuming just before they're about to board. And then you've got this, traditionally the practice is that you draw this as you're boarding and you're firing as you board.
Right.
But there's a lieutenant called William Pringle Green who suggests that actually the better practice is to draw your cutlass first, board, and then once you're on deck and you're at a closer range, you've got a better chance of hitting your target. That's when you fire your pistol in your left hand, so you can still keep your cutlass in your right hand.
And would you throw this away, like you see people boarding ships and then throwing their pistol to the side? Is that what really happened?
That appears to have been the sort of standard practice officially, but it's suggested that the better practice is to keep it with you, to draw your cutlass first, board with that, fire, but then keep this, because it's useful as a bit of a club. You can also block with it, so it becomes a handy implement for when you're in sort of close quarters as well. So it's worth keeping hold of it.
Can I have a go at firing this?
Yes, you can.
Excellent.
Here you go.
Feeling somewhat left out, it was my turn to get in on the action. Secure in the knowledge that Keith was indeed a fight director and stunt performer in the TV series Vikings and the feature film Ironclad, I had an idea in mind.
So we're here on board ship and we have some 19th century cutlasses and pistols, and I'm here with Keith, who's a fighting director as well as a weapons expert. So you're going to take me through some of the moves we might have seen at the Battle of Trafalgar using kind of both weapons.
Yeah, exactly, and one of the most common attacks is a straight downward cut towards the head. And we have a treatise by a chap called William Pringle Green who talks about a defence for that uses the pistol. So if you were to make a cut down towards my head, I use a parry that we call the St. George. So as I block that, I can use my pistol as well, and it means I can clear with both and either make a cut or I can make a thrust if we're tight in the press of battle as well. So it means I can actually use this to defend as well.
So it's an offensive and defensive weapon, and it's left me pretty helpless.
Yeah, I mean it's useful. Rather than just throwing it away, I can use it to defend or even to attack with if I want to as well.
So Keith, what other moves might we see at the battle?
So really simple one might be if you're trying to make a cut towards my shoulder or my neck,
so
I can make a
like
parry
this.
here, yeah, and then I can simply come in and knock with the butt of the weapon here, using it like a club effectively, so I can use it for offence as well.
So another instance of once you've fired your shot, you've run out of ammo, you can smack me over the head and knock me out pretty much.
Yeah, I can just turn it around and essentially use it as a club, yeah.
Please don't.
I won't.
Okay, so we're not going to use the pistol this time. So let's say I was to lunge forward with the stabbing motion.
Yep, I can block as this comes through and then I just rotate to cut straight down at the head effectively.
Okay.
Alternatively, try the same thing. I can actually use this for punching in as well. So this becomes a very effective weapon in itself as a guard.
Wow. So those were some of the moves we may have seen on several ships at the Battle of Trafalgar, using small arms and cutlasses. If the cannons didn't finish you off, those moves certainly would have.
Welcome to the History Hit YouTube channel, which we are relaunching. We've got all the best exclusive content going straight onto this History Hit YouTube channel. And you can find out, for example, why on earth I'm standing at the top of this mast. You should probably subscribe.